Now. Okay.
Hey guys, Laura and Brooke here. Welcome to our workshop on building a virtual law firm. So today we just kind of wanted to give you an overview on what a virtual law firm is and some things that we think are important when you are considering becoming a virtual lawyer. So first, what is the definition of a virtual law firm? That is something we get asked a lot, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand what it is, but a virtual law firm is actually a web-based law firm model for the delivery of legal services, providing easier access to legal consumers and also the flexibility to meet evolving consumer demand. And so Laura and I have a very specific definition of what it means to be a virtual law firm, and there's only really one question to ask. It's how do you actually deliver your services and interact with your clients, not where are you working. So.
Exactly. Virtual doesn't mean remote. Today we're gonna talk about different things related to building and thriving in a virtual practice, and we're gonna talk about them in relation to client touch points. This is how we at MyVirtual.Lawyer build our workflow. It's how we work with our clients. So we're gonna talk through each of those client touch points and ways and reasons to consider moving them online.
So the first is your website. Your website is very important for a virtual law firm, obviously, because you want people to be able to find you online. But at the top of your list should be creating a functional and user-friendly website. So we actually recommend hiring someone because your website is essentially your virtual identity. But you can also build one yourself on WordPress, Squarespace, Wix. There's different places. Also, you want to make sure that you have the security certificate for your website. So that's that HTTPS. It's inexpensive and it's going to help you kind of avoid being hacked by Russians, which is a true story that happened to us. If you've listened to us ever or know us at all, we'll tell you that story, but that's very important. So heed our warning. And if you are going virtual, make sure that you accurately portray yourself, your services, and especially important is the jurisdictions in which you practice. So pay attention to those things on your website. Also, consider adding a chat bot. We actually added a chat bot back last December to improve the user experience, to help them navigate the website, and it has drastically improved our conversion rate. So that's something that we encourage as well.
The next client touch point we're going to talk about is your scheduling or booking calendar. It's very important to have an accessible calendar for potential and current clients to book calls and chats with you. That's really key to being virtual and streamlining your practice and your overhead expenses. So one of the things to keep in mind is that you want that booking calendar, that software that you use, to integrate with multiple calendars that you have yourself to keep track of where you're going to be, what you're doing that particular day, that particular hour. So for example, with us, we have, our personal calendars, our work calendars, we have a shared calendar. You just need to make sure that whatever software you choose for that booking calendar can integrate with all of those so that you don't have any missed times that are blocked off or not blocked off the way that you want them to be. Another thing to think about with the booking calendar is that you can do intake questions for different types of calls. So for example, we practice in the areas of business law, family law, and estate planning. So for our different booking calendars, we have the ability to go in and ask different kinds of questions so that we know before we get on a potential client consultation what we're actually going to be talking about. The biggest thing, another biggest thing, I'm going to say biggest thing a lot today, but another big thing with the booking calendar is make sure you block off your office hours, chunks of time, things like that, so that people can't book appointments with you when you don't want them to. So if you set your office hours from 9 to 6 or 8 to 5 or whatever, or 2 to 4, whatever it might be, but also make sure to block off when you're going to, be on vacation or, go to a school function for your kids, whatever it might be. One thing that I've noticed with a lot of the booking calendars is if you actually do an all-day event, sometimes that doesn't translate over to block off the entire day in those booking calendars. So little tricks like that you got to keep in mind. We also personally set calls so that they cannot be booked with less than 24 hours notice. It's a personal choice that we have, but it helps us plan our days better. So we don't just get a surprise email saying that we have an appointment booked for 2 o'clock when it's 1 o'clock. So that's your choice. That's just kind of how we choose to do it. It's also really helpful and imperative for us to be able to take consultation fees within our schedule, within our booking calendar software. So we can take those payments. The client, when they're actually or the potential client, when they're setting up that consultation, they actually can pay. And there are different kind of providers that you can use for that, but it's something key to look for in whatever software you choose, that you have the ability to take payments. In the past, we've used things like Calendly and Acuity, and they integrate with Stripe. Last year, we switched to a newer program called Client Rock that's more of a pinpoint solution, more than a pinpoint solution for scheduling. They also take payments for consultations and full service fee agreements. They also send our fee agreements to our clients, for the clients who hire us for e-signature. And they are just have added the ability to add a client portal tool for chatting. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's your booking calendar, which is a very important way that a virtual attorney interacts with their clients and potential clients. Number 3 is consider having a virtual receptionist. Some people still like to talk to a human. That's fine. I'm not one of those people. I like chatbots and things like that. But it doesn't mean that you have to have, to have a receptionist doesn't mean you have to actually be paying a salary and have somebody in your office sitting at a desk and answering the phone. There are a lot of virtual options out there for answering services. We recently switched, and I say recently, we switched in December, January, I think. We'll just go with that. December of last year, same time we added the chatbot to our website because it's housed by the same people. We switched to Smith.ai, and these are actual humans that are working from home, and they actually have a conversation with the people who call in as opposed to following a script. We've had that kind of service in the past where they had a script to follow, and it tends to be a little bit annoying for people when they can't just ask a question and get a solid answer. So, that's just something to keep in mind, that you want to look for something that actually fits with your brand, fits with the way that you want your law firm to be run, but a virtual receptionist is a big deal.
Right. And touch point number 4, virtual consultations. So there are a few ways to do this. Video, obviously, we're all pretty much getting very acquainted with Zoom if we weren't already. Whereby.com is a free tool that we use. It has a few limitations in its free offerings, like most of these web conferencing tools do. Skype is another option, Microsoft Teams even. Then phone consultations. We actually found that most clients prefer this. We get a lot of pushback because other attorneys, not my clients, other attorneys think that, maybe you have to actually see that person, or that the client's going to want to do that. The client doesn't always necessarily want to see you. So that's shocking. But we have found that most clients actually opt in for the phone call over a video conference, even when we offer it. So we actually use Google Voice as our call out number, but there are paid VoIP options like Ring Central and Grasshopper. And then you probably have systems too, if you're in a more traditional practice, and some of those systems you can look in specifically and see what functionality that they have. But there are options and ways to set it up virtually using cloud-based solutions.
The 5th client touch point is taking electronic payments. Both Brooke and I have practiced in full representation before we owned our own full representation law firms, before she started MyVirtual.Lawyer, before I joined her. And it's, we do understand that there is a benefit to all in order, to accept cash payments. But your clients largely want to pay online because it's convenient for them and they're used to it, because they do it with other things like their bills, their mortgage, utility company, that kind of thing. So, where you can, when you would normally take a check or have somebody come to your office, look at the options for online payments for your fee agreements and things of that nature. Make sure that whatever merchant services provider you use, and you may have to use more than one. I kind of talked earlier about how some of our old booking calendar only integrated with Stripe. and we use LawPay for our larger, dollar amounts for the actual services that we provide once they become a client. So you may have to use a couple of different options and, and work out the different types of providers that you're going to use based on what integrates with your software. But you want to make sure that they have the proper PCI compliance certifications. The Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard is this PCI certification. So you want to make sure that they have that in place. And you also need to know that you have to complete an annual PCI certification questionnaire as the person who's accepting the payments through that particular vendor. So keep that in mind. I kind of mentioned before that you've got LawPay, which is the biggest one that integrates with most platforms and most softwares, but Stripe, PayPal, Square, there are different options out there. You'll want to make sure kind of what the charges are to accept payments for credit cards, because they're actually weirdly different for like a regular Discover card versus a rewards card Discover card. You pay more for the rewards card Discover card and percentages, all sorts of fun stuff with that. So make sure that you're getting the most benefit while we're splitting our clients' funds with a non-attorney who's not actually doing anything but taking the payments.
And number 6 is e-signatures for engagement. So, you also need this for client signature. So DocuSign, HelloSign, ClientRock, like Laura mentioned earlier, that platform allows the transition into intake that way. So e-signatures is really important for a virtual platform. I always tell a story, and Laura thinks it's funny, about how when I first started MyVirtual.Lawyer and I was trying to figure out, what tools to use, I did not have a good e-signature tool. And so I would send people things through their client portal and be like, could you please print this out and scan it and fax it back after you've signed it? So you definitely don't want to do that. That's not best practices, and we don't recommend that. But e-signature tools are fairly inexpensive. So definitely look into that. And sometimes they will either integrate with other technology that you're using. Sometimes it's standalone. So it just, matters what you're needing. Number 7 touch point is client management or practice management systems, also sometimes known as case management systems. This is key in making your practice virtual and more streamlined. This is it. You have to have this. So having your case files in a cloud environment and all in one place, it allows access from anywhere with an internet connection or cellular data. So that's really important because you can actually virtually take it anywhere. And we've used a few different options, but currently we're using Practice Panther because internally it allows us to do the next 2 things that Laura is going to talk to you about.
And remember, this is our workflow and kind of how we go about how we practice law in a virtual environment. So step number 8 is inside that practice management software, we're going to look at electronic intake. So this is going to be different than the intake questions that I mentioned before with your booking scheduler for clients to set up an appointment for you to talk about a divorce or with you to talk about a divorce or an estate plan or getting their business started, operating agreements, whatever it might be. That's the pre-engagement intake. The post-engagement intake, electronic intake, it goes kind of hand in hand with automation, which I'm going to talk about next. So the big thing is that you use your practice management system or use other softwares to create a questionnaire that your clients fill out electronically. Some people do this already, but they don't necessarily do it in conjunction with the automation feature. So I'll talk about that in a second. I've said that twice now, but that's what happens. So it's, a lot of people do that intake questionnaire, and you either have that client come in and sit down with a staff member or yourself and write things down or type things in. But when you do it with an electronic format to send to your client, you have the client filling this out versus you filling it out or a staff member filling out. And it really cuts down on errors, informational errors, potential spelling errors, things of that nature, because that's one of the things that I think a lot of us do is when you're transcribing information, you might spell somebody's name wrong or put the wrong date. So the nice thing about step number 9 is when the client is filling out the or step number 9, client touch point number 9, when the client is filling out that electronic intake, then it makes it easier for your automation because it's actually pulling from the data that they typed in as opposed to something that you transcribed in for them. So automation, number 9, is, this is so huge, and it's not just huge for a virtual practice, it's huge for everybody. I'm sure you all have a go-by or a template that you use for drafting the same type of document over and over again, whether that be a complaint for divorce or a power of attorney or whatever it might be. You have that go-by that you use over and over again. Automation takes a big, takes all that out, because basically the commitment that we put in on the front end allows me now and Brooke now to click a button within our practice management software and apply a template that we've already done the work to. And so it just maps over all the information that the client has put in and puts it in the proper place in our document. It does take a big commitment from you or someone that you pay, which we recommend the second part of that, because we both Brooke and I have done it ourselves, and it really is very tedious to do the automation piece on the front end. So outsourcing, is an option for that, but it really saves you valuable time in repetitive drafting in the long run. So it's something really good to look at. It's part of the reason that we switched over to Practice Panther for our software, for our practice management software a couple of years ago, because everything is inside of Practice Panther. And we have mapped every single intake questionnaire answer to a specific field, which means that that field has a code that we've put into our Word documents and uploaded it into Practice Panther to use. And that's how we get, the ability to hit the button and inside of a matter to apply a template and have any document largely filled out automatically by the client's answers, just one click. I do this specifically with my estate planning documents, like I mentioned, complaints, waivers, notices, whatever it might be. Sometimes you're going to have to customize more than others, but it's really huge in time saving, and we recommend that anybody look into this.
Yes, automation is so important in becoming a more efficient practice and taking back some of your life and time. So definitely. And the last thing, we're at our last touch point, is the most important. We save the best for last, but like we mentioned, law practice management software it's very important, but the cornerstone of a virtual law firm is offering a secure client portal. So you can use client portals for all sorts of things, to communicate, to exchange documents, to share invoices. And we recommend the actual practice management solution, where the client portal is integrated within some kind of practice management solution instead of a standalone client portal. There's several reasons for that. One, we like to have things in one place. And so, ease of use, and also having functionality to communicate with our internal collaboration efforts, whether that is, editing documents, each of us doing that together, or sharing them with clients and getting them reviewed. So it's better if you could have everything in one place. So there's different practice management softwares that have these client portals. Practice Panther, like Lauren, I've mentioned several times, that's who we use currently. Clio has a secure encrypted client portal as well. MyCase is also a software solution that provides a client portal, and there are new ones steadily popping up. So we also want to provide you guys a handout, kind of a overview virtual law firm checklist. So make sure to be looking for a link to the handout in the next few days. We're going to have it posted here.
Exactly. And we are launching our next round of our How to Build a Virtual Law Firm course next week. We're going to send out materials on Monday, but for anybody who's signed up, but you do have the whole week to sign up, because our live Q&As aren't going to start until the following week on the subject matter from next week. So we'll have a link here to the course. And we're going to stay on for a few more minutes, depending on what questions you might have. Our faces are going to go off, but we're going to stay in the system so that we can answer any questions that you might have. And, if that doesn't work, because we're recording this beforehand, if that doesn't work, then we're going to be available within the pop-up group to answer any questions that you have. So please feel free to post any questions There are no stupid questions. I promise. I got asked what a mouse was one time when I was training somebody on Westlaw. So that was maybe a stupid question because it was, 2005 or something, but no stupid questions. Everybody learns from other people's questions. So, ask us what you want to ask us, and we hope to see you in the course next week, and we will see you around.
Thanks.